Welcome to Bradley the Singing Chef. It's been a few weeks since I posted a recipe on my channel, but that's because I've been knee-deep in rehearsals with the Voices of Liberty over at Epcot, and I'm just now getting around to making another video for you. Today I'm going to make my version of banana nut bread because I had 4 or 5 bananas sitting around in my house that started to look like this, spotted and nasty looking. However, that means some sugars have developed inside these bananas, and we're going to use all that goodness inside our beautiful loaves of banana nut bread. Okay, so there's a little bit of a twist to this. It actually has a topping on the top of it, so stay tuned for how we get that going. The first thing I want to say is you're going to preheat your oven to 325 degrees to get ready to bake the bread in 2 small loaf tins, which I have prepped here by putting some Crisco all around the pan, and then I cut some parchment paper, and I just cut enough so that it overlaps on the sides, kind of like an airplane. That way, when the bread bakes, I can actually lift that parchment out, and it's really easy to get the bread out of the pan with no worries about anything sticking. The last thing I need to do to both of these pans is just take some cooking spray and just hit the bottom of the parchment, so that's easy to also peel off the bottom of your banana nut bread loaves. I'm gonna set these to the side for now because we don't need those quite yet. Just gonna put them down here on the lower shelf while we get going on the rest of these. Now, as I mentioned, this recipe actually has a beautiful topping on top of our banana nut bread, and it's this gorgeous, crumbly, nut-filled streusel topping that makes this recipe just a level above any other banana nut bread that I think that you've had. So give it a shot. Here we go. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is actually make that streusel topping. You're going to see me referring to my notes over here because when it comes to baking, that's like science, and it's not just ad-libbing like I usually do when I'm cooking other things. So I'm going to make sure that I follow my recipe one step at a time. So I've got a small bowl here. To that bowl, I am going to add 3 tablespoons of flour. That's all-purpose flour. Goes in there. To that flour, I am going to add a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. You can use light or dark brown sugar. Doesn't really matter which one you use. Along with a 1/4 teaspoon cinnamon. Get all that goodness out of there. And then I have taken a couple of tablespoons of salted butter, and I've let it come to sort of room temperature, but I diced it into like small little cubes like you can see there. That's just gonna make it easier for me to incorporate into my streusel. And last, I'm gonna use a 1/4 cup or so of chopped pecans. That is my nut of choice for this recipe, so that is also going into the bowl. Take a nice fork, and all you want to do is stir all of that around and make sure all the butter pieces get incorporated, as well as that your brown sugar is nice and broken up. And you just continue mashing all of that together with your fork. Scrape your fork down when you need to. Go back in. Continue to mash all of those ingredients together until you get a nice streusel. Once all the butter is incorporated into the flour and the nuts and the sugar, you are good to go with your streusel concoction, and you can just set that to the side when we're ready to put that on top of the banana bread. So again, I'm going to put that down here on my lower shelf until I am ready for it. Okay, just doing a little cleanup to make some room on my station. Next thing I need to do is get my dry ingredients sifted together that's going to go into my bread. So into my sifter and into a medium-sized bowl, I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Go into the sifter, along with a teaspoon each of baking powder. Okay, there you go. And baking soda. It's going to go in along with some cinnamon. I have about a teaspoon to teaspoon and a half of cinnamon. And lastly, I'm going to do about a half a teaspoon of salt. All those dry ingredients I'm just going to whisk into this bowl so we get those incorporated with each other, and we make sure that we don't have giant lumps of flour. Sift, 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 just tapping the side of that sifter till everything gets incorporated and down into this bowl saved for our dry ingredients to add to our wet ingredients. Awesome. I use pretty coarse salt, so sometimes it collects in the bottom of my sifter rather than mashing through. So I give it a little grind there to push through all the flour, and then I sprinkle in the salt that's left. That's just because I have really coarse salt. All right, finish with this guy so he can go away as well. Okay, now I have my stand mixer here. You can use a hand mixer for this process too, but you definitely want something with some horsepower behind it because we're going to cream together some salted butter along with some sugars. And to get those nice and fluffy, you really do need either a hand mixer or a stand mixer rather than trying to beat it by hand. That's not a thing. You don't want to do that. All right, so I have a half a cup or a stick of salted butter. You guys know when I make sweets, I like a little savory in the sweet, so I'm choosing to use salted butter. If you don't want that, you can certainly use unsalted butter. That would be perfectly fine as well. To that, I'm going to add a half a cup of brown sugar. That's my oven preheating over there. Again, light or dark brown sugar, totally up to you. There is no rhyme or reason. One has a little bit more molasses in it than the other one. And then we also have just plain white sugar, half a cup of that as well. And I'm going to turn on my stand mixer and let it do all the work of creaming together that butter and sugar. Be careful, got a man overboard. If your brown sugar is still clumped together pretty well from packing it in the measuring cup, sometimes that'll happen if you go too high on your speed at first. But once it gets going, again, you're going to want to make sure that your butter is at room temperature, or this creaming process just won't work. I'm going to let this go for about 2 minutes until it gets nice and fluffy, and I will be right back. Hey y'all, we are back. Okay, my butter and my sugars are nice and fluffy and creamed together here in the mixing bowl. Next thing I need to add is a couple of eggs. So I'm just going to crack these eggs into a bowl. At least use large eggs. I actually have extra large eggs. You don't have to scramble them or anything like that. I'm just putting them in the bowl to make sure I don't get any shell into my batter rather than breaking them directly into it. And also so that I can put it in one at a time. So there goes my first egg, and I'm going to turn this on and let that first egg get incorporated. Nice. There. Now my second egg. Clean up a little while that mixes. Let that beat for 30 seconds to a minute or so, just to get a little air into those eggs. Great. Okay, so next step I need to do, we're making banana bread, you gotta have banana. You can't make banana bread without peeling some bananas. So I had 4 or 5 of these sort of browning bananas in my fruit bowl. I've already mashed up a few of them, but yeah, just gonna take this last one out of the peel, put it here in the bowl, put the peel to the side. And I mean, you could use like a potato masher, I guess, but I'm just using a fork because they're so ripe that they just easily break down just with a regular old fork. So no need to dirty your potato masher for the sake of the bananas and banana bread. And just like that one is already broken down with very little effort because they were on their way out, folks. So that's just my clue. If I see bananas that are starting to look brown, hey, banana bread time, right? Okay, so there are all of my bananas. Now, rather than use this mixer, I'm actually going to scrape off my paddle to get everything down in there. Actually, it's easier to take off this paddle. Scrape all that goodness off the paddle because you don't want to miss out on any of that with a wooden spoon. There we go. That's decent. Put that over to the side. And now I can just take my mixing bowl and I'm just going to fold in the rest of these ingredients into my banana bread. First, the bananas. 4 to 5 bananas is plenty. If you're feeling greedy, 5 to 6 is okay too. I like a lot of banana flavor, so I think I used a total of 5 in this batch. So I'm just going to start by folding in the bananas into this mixture. Then I need about a teaspoon of vanilla extract. An easy way with most vanilla extract bottles is that the cap is about a teaspoon. So in you go with our vanilla. And to that, I also have a 1/4 cup or so of buttermilk. If you have regular milk, that will be just fine. If you want to make buttermilk with regular milk, you could add just a splash of vinegar or even some lemon juice and let it sit for a while. Milk will start to curdle a little bit and head towards buttermilk consistency. All right, so let's get all of that liquid stirred in to the bananas and the sugar and the butter. It's gonna look like something has split, but fear not, it has not. That's just the way that this particular batter looks until you add the dry ingredients in. So next, all those dry ingredients that we sifted together in this bowl are going to get incorporated. I'm just going to do this sort of in thirds. I do that when I make cakes, so it's just habit that I do a little bit of the dry at a time, because I want to make sure that all the dry gets incorporated nicely into the wet. And a little elbow grease and we will get there. All right, and then some more of the dry. Again, just folding that into the wet that's already in the bowl. And you'll see, as you add these dry ingredients, the mixture will start getting thicker and thicker, obviously, and more to a bread dough or cake batter consistency that you're used to seeing. I feel like banana bread should just be called banana cake. I feel like the only thing that makes it bread is that you cook it in a loaf pan. Like, it doesn't have I know there are rising agencies, with the baking powder and the baking soda, but it's it's not like a yeasted dough like I would normally make for a regular bread, but you know, tradition calls it that. Who am I to say it should be something else? But to me, this is far more like mixing a cake together than it is mixing a dough for a bread. Oh, and it is smelling amazing. Those bananas were so ripe, but the sweet smell of them was almost like a banana liqueur in the air. Make sure you dig down and scrape the bottom of the bowl. Get all the dry ingredients fully incorporated into the wet. There you go. Once the flour is fully incorporated, stop. You don't want to go any further because you don't want to really, over stir this mixture because we want it to still be able to rise, right? The last thing I'm going to add, because this is banana nut bread, is another half cup of pecans. Are going into the bowl and just lightly fold those chopped pecans into the batter so that they get distributed. Once they're distributed, again, stop stirring. You do not need to do any more than that. Okay. Let's trade out a few things on this busy station that I have here. So I need my loaf pans that we prepped earlier, again with Crisco or cooking spray in the bottom of the pan, followed by some parchment for easy loaf retrieval later. Just lapped over the sides there, all right? So now I've got these two small loaf pans. I'm just gonna half this batter, right, into each of them. So I'll start with one. Good amount of batter in, then I will move to the next. Oh gosh, guys, these smell so good. Scrape down the sides of my bowl to get everything out. Scoop into that one. And I'm just kind of eyeballing this so they at least look even in the pan. Make sure I got everything out there. Don't want to leave any behind. All right. So there we go. All the batter is in each of the individual loaves. They're about yay high, which is about 1/2 to 3/4 of the way up the loaf pan. I just give them a little jiggle to make them even across the top, because now is when the magic happens. We are going to add that beautiful streusel mixture that we mixed together earlier with the pecans and the cinnamon and the brown sugar and the butter. Butter is like a food group in my house. We do enjoy our butter. And then I'm just gonna, again, eyeball about half. You just sprinkle this streusel mixture all over the top of your dough. Grab another handful and make sure this one gets some love back here. Oh, yeah. This is not your average, ordinary banana bread, folks. I think you're never gonna make banana bread any other way after you try this goodness. Yeah. Once you have all that streusel mixture all over both loaves, I am just going to pop these into the oven. So set at 325, and that just needs to bake for about 1 hour to 1 hour and 10 minutes. And after that, I will check them, see how we're doing. We'll put a toothpick in to just make sure that that comes out clean to tell us that everything has been cooked all the way through. From there, we'll do some cooling. process with those, they should lift really easily out of these pans. But for now, I'm gonna pop these in the oven and I'll see you in an hour. Hey y'all, and welcome back to Bradley the Singing Chef. Okay, I took these beautiful Streusel Top banana nut breads out of the oven after about an hour and 5 minutes or so. That's when a toothpick told me that they were completely done in the middle. I took them out and I put them in the pan onto a baking rack and I let them cool there for about 15 minutes, okay? So now I'm ready to actually remove them completely and put them on the baking rack to cool for the rest of the time. But I wanted to show you this step to show you how easy it is to get these out of the pan, thanks to the prep work we did with this parchment paper. So I'm just gonna lift up and look at that. Comes right out of the baking pan. And because we sprayed that parchment a little bit, that also comes right off. How easy is that, right? Just over to the side. Same process with this one. I mean, it makes all the difference to hang on to that banana bread the way you want to. Then again, just lift off, put it right there on the baking rack. And I'm gonna let those cool completely, probably for another 15 to 20 minutes before I cut in. I'm dying to get into these, but I'm gonna let them cool completely. And then we will cut in and see how we did. I'll be right back after they're cooled down. Hey y'all, and welcome back. My banana nut bread is fully cooled and I am ready to dig in. I'm just gonna move this over here to my cutting board and give you guys a good look. Look at that. That gorgeous streusel on top. That's what I'm talking about. I'm just gonna take a serrated knife, cut down through. Oh, yes. Look at this. Banana nut bread. Goodness. Those beautiful pecans in there. That crusty, buttery streusel on top. Well, you know I'm gonna have a taste of this. Still a little bit warm, which I'm not mad at. It is so moist, but that crumbly streusel on top is a perfect amount of texture. So much banana flavor all the way through it. You guys seriously have to try this recipe. It's the only way to eat banana bread. Thank you so much again for joining me on Bradley the Singing Chef. I hope you will like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Bradley the Singing Chef, and tell everyone you know about it, because I would love to get more subscribers on the channel. Again, thanks for joining me. I hope you will eat well, love always. Bon appetit, y'all.